These things need to be talked about and not as taboo of, oh, gosh, I can't talk about vaginal dryness. I can't talk about this hurts. I can't talk about the last thing I want is a penis driving in me. There's so many things that, that you need to be honest about.
Did you push record?
Thank you so much for tuning into our second act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life.
Hi, Paige. Well, we're back talking relationships and specifically the effects that going through menopause can have on your relationships. We just had a conversation about the importance of open communication, Paige, and that is so difficult for people to do. Why is that?
Well, first of all, you don't know how a couple's communication is to begin with before menopause happens. So if you've never really learned to speak openly, authentically, and honestly with your significant other, it's going to be that much harder to speak about menopause, vaginal dryness, lack of libido. And, you also have to take a look at, did or has this couple been in denial? Have they avoided things in their relationship? And so here's another piece to avoid when, clearly you can't avoid this anymore when you're not having sex.
Well, and let me give you an example. And we had just a comment just a couple of minutes ago. Another one came in that totally identified with, the vaginal atrophy, the painful sex. They are in separate bedrooms, but they're friends, and they're living like everything is normal. And she's wondering if the sexual part, the intimacy, will ever come back to her life. I can totally identify, and there's so many women in that situation. And it's not just the men that are frustrated, it's on both sides. So this is really a conversation that I want to address, and I know you can give wonderful tips on facing that fear and maybe how to get somebody through that or past that.
Well, the big part is it can feel so isolating, especially within a relationship. So the first tip that I can give is you have to come together with your partner or your spouse, and you have to bring the elephant that's in the room, and you got to crack it open, and you got to say, okay, we're both sleeping in separate rooms, or I know that we're not having enough sex or any sex because lack of libido, vaginal dryness, whatever it is, but can we talk about what it's like for you as my partner, my spouse, and what it's like for me? Because so many times people are hiding emotions that are underneath it all and creating a more difficult time, whether there's resentment, fear, anger, guilt. I mean, check the box. There can be so many things just from menopause, but we also don't know what the couple has not dealt with long before menopause had come. So let's start with just talking about what's going on in the moment. And in the moment is, I'm going through menopause, and there's some great things about it, and there's some challenging things about it that are affecting our relationships. So can we talk honestly about it? That's what I would first begin with.
Yeah. See, and I'm putting myself in the when I'm listening to you talk into the position of the woman, because that's who I am. And if you had given me that advice when I was married, and I would think, yeah, that all makes sense, but I'm almost afraid to open that up because I'm afraid of having sex. I mean, it and I know it gets that bad for women.
Then, and this is what I tell women all the time. Tip number 2, great segue. It really is okay to say, I'm afraid of having sex, because when I have sex, this is what happens inside my body. And that's what I'm talking about, is you have to be so incredibly honest. And I have couples that I work with all the time, and men individually, that I help men get inside, like what are their emotions that they're going through, and how can they be supportive and compassionate while their wife or their significant other is going through whatever they are going through during menopause, because there's lots of other things you can do besides intercourse. But when you don't have the libido, and you just don't, nothing's there, you've got to talk about what the fears that you have, that you feel guilty because you can't do this, or whatever it might be, because not talking about it, believe it or not, gets trapped in the body even more and creates more blockages in the vagina.
Yeah, well, and yeah, and grin and bear it doesn't help, and that's, and
Yeah.
and I know when I was going through that, I didn't understand what was going on, and even now, with every interview I do with an expert, I learn something new, and I so that just makes me think, how are other people who aren't just entrenched with this don't have
And
that
that's
knowledge?
and that's a great point because that's why we're bringing it up to
Yeah.
say, hey, you know what? These things need to be talked about
Mhm.
and not as taboo of, oh, gosh, I can't talk about vaginal dryness. I can't talk about this hurts. I can't talk about the last thing I want is a penis driving in me.
Yeah.
There's so many things that, that you need to be honest about. But when you speak, tip number 3, to your significant other, you need to say, this is not personal. I know it feels personal, but this is what's going on in my body. And why don't we go together to speak to my gynecologist or a doctor so you too, my partner, my spouse, can ask questions as well? Because it's not an isolating journey. You can bring your partner and spouse in and say, you know what? Let's take each other's hands and let's walk through this journey together, because as much as it is affecting me, I know it's affecting you as well.
Well, and people like yourself, I mean, couples could call you via Skype if they wanted to, or
Sure.
we have other experts like Tiffany, who we just interviewed, that they all do Skype sessions if you want to talk about this, because there is hope. That's something else that I can say, having gone through that, through the
Yes.
extreme end of it. And we're talking, when we talk about pain with sex and being afraid of it, it's like having a knife go in you.
Yes,
And
it is.
women talk about this, the doctors will talk about this, and this is something that both men and women need to understand, that it's normal, but it can be fixed. It doesn't have to stay. It's something that can be treated.
And that's why going to a medical practitioner of some sort and bringing your significant other can talk about it. Because if you're not both going through the journey together, then somebody's going through it by themselves.
Oh,
And
that's such a great point.
and
Such a
that
great
makes it
point.
even more isolating. That makes it even more lonely. So, and tip number 4, tip number 4 is, I know some people might go, oh, Paige, that's bullshit. But I got to tell you, we're living in this human body and we're souls. This opportunity, when maybe you're not having a lot of sex, gives you an opportunity to learn how to love the other person in a soulful, emotional, different way that might be even deeper than you could ever have imagined. So you have to really look at all the different ways and all the different things that go on in a relationship, especially when you're going through a difficult, challenging time.
And the other, encouraging thing that I can say, and where we'll be bringing this to you, is that there is a way to get back, to get your body
Yes.
back into a state of intimacy, that the whole process can be really fun. And believe me, you can get back there. I promise.
You can get back there. But if you can't get back to where you were, and this is important to say it, if you can't get back to the same way that you were, that doesn't mean where you are is not going to be enjoyable, and even more enjoyable, especially since you might have built up more of an emotional connection, a deeper connection. So you have to really look at it from all phases, because what may work for one person is not going to be the answer for someone else. So take that into consideration.
Well, and take into consideration that going back to the way you were, you may not want to go back to the way you were. It may be a totally different way that's much better. I think you've kind of said that, but I wanted to reemphasize that, because again, that's what happened. We say that we bring what we lived, and we're talking about, certainly I am right now, about something I went through, and there's so much hope, and it does get better. And having those conversations, yes, Paige, as you say and as you emphasize, is so important. We're coming to an end of this segment again right now. What would you like to leave our audience with?
Well, having conversations are important. Not traveling this journey by yourself is important. Traveling with your significant other. But a big question you have to ask your significant other is this: are you ready? Do you want to travel this journey with me? Big question that you need to know.
Yeah, no, exactly. On that note, we will be back and continuing our conversations. We feel this is so important. I can't emphasize how much feedback we've received, and we know we're hitting on something here that people want to hear about. So, please leave us your comments, your questions. We just redid our website, and there's a suggestion box that if you want us to cover something specific, please let us know. You don't have to, tell us who you are if you want to stay anonymous, but we do want to hear from you. And Paige, we'll see you soon again on another episode of Our Second Act with Paige and Silke.
For your second act of life.
Thanks. Bye-bye. One last thing, if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please just take 1 second to do so. Button's right over here. And please visit our website, secondact.tv. We just redid it. Hope you like it. See you soon. Bye.